Hello, and thanks for stopping by for this week's story time. In today's episode, I will be reading a brief excerpt from my short story, Aunt Aggie and the Makeup Lady, which appears in Peripheral Visions and Other Stories. When Billy said he repaired the gutters, I should never have believed him. That was my first mistake. If I had checked them myself, I would have realized the job had to be done all over again, but the right way this time. Then the 3-day rain wouldn't have loosened them from the roof, and I would have been inside the house instead of dangling from an aluminum piece 10 feet off the ground, and Aunt Aggie and the makeup lady would have never had their fateful meeting. Aunt Aggie wasn't even my aunt, but somehow during the division of marital property, I ended up with her. She was married to Billy's father's brother, and therefore didn't even have a blood claim to the family. But she always liked Billy and kind of adopted us as her own children since she didn't have any of her own. Everybody liked Billy. That was the problem. Billy was a real likable devil, and women were always falling for his charm and curly hair and big blue eyes, even when he left them crying over the results of their pregnancy tests. They still wanted him to come back. I can't fault the women. Hell, I knew what he was like, and I still married him. But after the last time, I just had to draw the line. It was getting all too ridiculous. Billy was a truck driver and was due to take a load of beef on a 2-week haul across the country. That was his story. But when his girlfriend in Tucson called to ask if he'd left yet, I knew I'd had enough, especially when the 14-day trip turned into 16 months. So we split up, and Billy got the tractor trailer rig, and I got the house, and the 2 kids, and the mortgage, and Aunt Aggie. I don't mind about Aunt Aggie, not really. Although it did take me some time to get used to her appearance, the frizzy dyed red hair, the 3-inch coat of mascara on her stubby lashes, the jangly assortment of pins, necklaces, and bracelets that she wore from early in the morning till late at night. I often suspected she wore the jewelry to bed, but never wanted to know badly enough to voluntarily enter her bedroom. I needed at least an 8-hour break each day from Aggie and her peculiarities. Most of the year, Aunt Aggie lived in a small trailer court just outside of Vegas with about a dozen or so other old people. But every now and then the urge would come over her to visit her family, and she would descend on us like a gambler's idea of Santa, with poker chips and paper umbrellas for the kids, and sample bottles of shampoo, soap, and sometimes even bath towels for me. For an old lady, Aunt Aggie had very fast fingers. Okay, so that's a little bit of Aunt Aggie and the story, Aunt Aggie and the Makeup Lady. And the story, as you can pretty much guess, is a fun little one. I hope you might have an opportunity to read it in full. All you got to do is get your copy of Peripheral Visions, and that's how you can read it. But let's talk about where the whole idea came from, because I certainly don't have an Aunt Aggie. So near as I can remember, it started out like this. It was hot July, hot, humid in July in Ohio, and that's pretty hot and humid. And I was at a flea market. Now, a flea market is a terrific place to be, especially if you're a writer, because the stories almost write themselves. I mean, there's so many different kinds of people and so many odd little objects. But in this case, I was too hot, too sweaty to really care what I saw. Just walking up and down the aisles, checking out what's at the different tables, and happened to fall into a conversation with a vendor. She was a woman, I would guess, maybe in her late 40s, early 50s. So we started out talking, as most people, strangers do, about the weather. Boy, it's hot out here. Yes, it's really hot out here. We could use some rain. Yes, we could. And I said, well, I'll be glad to get back home, get back where it's a little bit cooler, have some iced tea, relax. And she said, yes, she says, but I have to tell you, I'd rather be here than back home with my husband's Aunt Aggie. Now, I have to tell you, that's all she said. She didn't go into any long conversation about Aunt Aggie. I have no idea what her husband's Aunt Aggie was like, but something about it, something about the way she said it and the name, Aunt Aggie, it just stuck in my mind. So for the rest of the time that I was at this flea market and on my way home, and once I got home, as I was kind of walking around the house, I'm thinking, Aunt Aggie, Aunt Aggie. And pretty soon I get this story in my mind about Aunt Aggie, what she might look like, and about MaryLynn, the poor beleaguered divorced mother of 2 young kids, the makeup lady who's new to the whole process of being a door-to-door salesperson, let alone running into somebody like Aunt Aggie. And the dog. Of course there's a dog in the story. There has to be a dog in the story because there's 2 kids, and with 2 kids, I have to have a pet, and a dog just fit. And from that point on, the story basically just wrote itself. I started working on it, drafted it, saved it, let it sit for a while, as I usually do with my stories, and then came back to it, renamed it, because I know better than to overwrite any file. The minute you overwrite a file and delete something, you hate yourself. But started cleaning it up, started imagining what would happen, how would the story go. I mean, I knew it had to be a funny story, because how could it not be a funny story? But I just wasn't sure what all the elements would be. And the more I worked on it, the more revisions I did, the more little scenes dropped into it. I mean, the story basically takes place in an afternoon. That's all. It's not a long story, and it doesn't cover a long span of time. But in any case, by the time I got to the end of it, on the final revision, I thought it was a pretty funny story. So I hope if you do have a chance to read Aunt Aggie and the Makeup Lady in full, you will enjoy it. You'll enjoy reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it. So thanks so much for stopping by this episode of Storytime, and I hope to see you back again sometime soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.